So in terms of Mark, what have you guys discussed, if anything, or what has he told you about him, or what are you surmising about him and his, quote-unquote, not being able to overcome past fears and make a commitment?
I believe it's just a matter of him enjoying a type of freedom. Because even though we have our companionship, we still have, again, our freedom. We have our freedom to roam. We don't live together. There's no curfews. There's no, oh, why did you get home at 12 o'clock or whatever. There's no sense of responsibility as that goes. Because whatever we have to do in our lives, whether it's work, whether it's, even whether it's play, because, you know, he's got friends, I've got friends, you know, things like that. I think, honestly, it's more of a freedom thing. Or maybe it's not. I really don't know how to kind of analyze it. But I think, you know, being with the amount of people he's been with and that not working out. And yes, he brought children into the world and he had that complication. And then even being with somebody that he didn't have children with, it didn't work out. So
what makes you know that he is not interested in making a commitment?
He did explain that he wasn't ready. We had that conversation.
How did it come about that you know?
Well, we were having our usual conversation about basically everything. And it just came about where, you know, where do you see this going? And not now, because there's no pressure, because, you know, we really don't, it's not a pressure thing, but, you know, do we have a chance? What are we looking at, basically?
So you were asking him?
Yes.
And when did this come about?
Maybe a couple of months ago.
And he said what?
He said he wasn't ready. He said that basically the companionship that we have is great. He wouldn't change it for the world. He wouldn't change the exclusivity between us. So it's not like, you know, he's out there dating everybody else. I'm not out there dating anybody else. But right now, to actually turn around and kind of settle down, not in a marriage sense, but even in a relationship sense, he stated he wasn't ready. Whatever that means.
What do you want?
I would eventually want the commitment.
So you are ready?
I believe I can be ready.
And your situation is quite a normal situation that many women find themselves in. You see, the issue here really isn't you are not being able to move beyond the past. Your feelings can propel you into commitment. In other words, if he came to you today and said, I want to marry you, it sounds like you would. Is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You see how simple it is for women? All that we talked about.
I know.
All that we talked about would go by the wayside, and you would. And this doesn't have anything to do with your ability to do it, to understand where you've been, to completely commit, because you do so via your emotions.
I'm more of a risk taker.
Pardon me?
I'm not afraid to jump into something unknown. I may cry like a baby before I do it, but I will do it. Because I cry more with the what if.
And what you're dealing with here is not your inability. You're not saying, okay, you're not being able to take a risk, any of it. What you're dealing with is the conversation you had 2 months ago, and that you know that he's not going to be doing that anytime soon.
Right.
So it's up to you now as to what you will and will not do, because since that time, what has happened in the relationship?
Since then, I think I have been more confrontational, and not as like picking a fight, but I have been more, I guess, sensitive. So I will kind of confront something that he would say to kind of see where he would take the conversation. Instead of just kind of going with the flow, like we have been, I will confront something if I don't like it, or if I take it a certain way, or I'll even not take it a certain way and push it to another direction to see if he will continue that flow. So I'm kind of testing things now, I guess.
And how is he reacting to that?
Unfortunately, we've gotten into a few scuffles. Not physically, but verbally. But we haven't, the connection is still there.
So you've had some arguments about it or what have you. What has
discussions,
been...
Yeah.
Okay, so discussions. What has been the most recent outcome, and where are you guys now?
We actually stopped talking for a few days, and we actually started talking today.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So,
yeah.
Okay. So when you say you stopped talking, what was it an actual breakup, or how did it come about that you stopped talking?
Basically, he stated maybe we need some time, and I said, sure, why not? And this morning I received the typical, how are you text.
And what did you do with that?
I just kind of giggled at it.
You what?
I giggled at it because I was getting ready to text him.
So you guys are getting into a pattern of you say something, and he knows now what you want. Right? He knows now you want the full meal deal and you want commitment.
He knows now, but he also knows that I'm not going to push that note. Because
Right.
I can't force anybody to be with me. So I am not going to put a foot forward until he's ready.
Okay. So you're saying to me, if I hear you correctly, I'm not going to put my desire for commitment above this relationship. I prefer to have the relationship as it is, exclusive, and I enjoy everything about him, and I don't want to mess things up with the relationship by pushing commitment. Is that right?
Yes.
How committed are you to that?
I guess as committed as we've both been for the last 2 years.
So, meaning that, and the reason I ask the question that way is that that's going to take you being committed to that mindset. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
But when I say committed to that mindset, you really must be. And there can be no more discussion about it or his feeling that you're not. And I'll tell you why I believe that. He isn't ready. If you know my book and you've read The Puppy Principle, you know why. I say that because there's nothing like it in our world in terms of, for women, in terms of love and commitment. Meaning that if you lost a relationship last week, if you met someone that knocked your socks off and in 3 weeks you're in a relationship with him, you are going to be ready for the full meal deal. If you like him enough, you spend time with him, and you have sex with him, you will be committed and bonded. That's just how women work. There is no decision-making in it, in terms of love. But there is with something like puppies or a pet. We love all puppies. We love them big, small, short, tall, thin, not thin, black, white, red, green. We love them all. But if we have had one for a very long time, however long the little pooch lasts, 10 years, 15 years, what have you, and then our love passes away, we are not ready, typically, to go out and be responsible to and for another pretty puppy, no matter how much we love it. And that's how a man feels. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you. He does. He is not ready, however, to make a decision to be responsible to and for the pretty puppy that he loves, because he just got out of a very long-term being responsible to and for another puppy that he adopted, meaning a marriage. And that's why I say that a man must be minimally signed, sealed, delivered, divorced in terms of playing any odds. Again, eclipses happen. There are men who they've been divorced a year, year and a half, what have you, and they get married. That does happen. But I always say for women to really be successful in relationships, think of yourself as an exceptional woman, but not the exception to the rule. Because when we think of ourselves as the exception to the rule, statistically, we will be hurt. So in this case, you're telling me I'm okay without being married again. Is that right? Or at least for now. And maybe ever. As long as I have him.
Yes.
Okay. Why do you laugh? What's funny about it?
It's so sad.
Oh, really? Why is that sad? What's sad about it?
Because I'm saying it's okay.
Well, but...
And then you have the norms of society that would say this woman is crazy. What the hell is wrong with her?
Interesting. Not necessarily. Because he's not going to be ready now. He's not. If he's at all typical. And let me tell you, I actually think that's better. Because here's what I think when I hear of a man being married. Because men live via their decisions. And when a man makes a full commitment, formal, public commitment, such as marriage, that means when he's a man that no matter how awful it is, he will typically suck it up. That's my sports supposition. Men don't leave their team. No matter how bad the team is, even if it's just a team they watch and they follow, no matter how awful it is, and they never win a pennant or a trophy or the series or anything, they bitch about it, they moan, all of it, but they don't leave that team. And that's a typical man. And marriage, why 80% of marriages that end in divorce, the divorce is brought to the fore by the woman. Because we live via our emotions. So your divorce was not typical in that the man left. That tells me how commitment-oriented you are. You were there and you were sticking it out no matter how awful it was and how much you shut down. But he, not being a fully cooked, mature man, he got out. He made it also unbearable for you and then felt okay that because it's so bad and she's so unhappy, I'll leave? Kind of both. Is that about right?
That is about right.
Okay.
He left, but I did the divorce. I initiated
You had to take care
the
of it
divorce.
all, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Of course, yeah.
In Mark's situation, she ended it and she took care of the divorce.
In his marriage. Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
Mhm.
Mhm. That's typical. 80% of the time. And that is just a statistic that we know of from the courts, because I would dare say it's more like 90 to 95% of divorces are brought by women, where the woman leaves. Because again, a man lives via his decisions, and a real man, most, live up to their decisions, no matter how bad it is. And it's why men say to each other, when a man is complaining about something, the other men say, suck it up, man. Here's what I can tell you, that he's happy. Mark is happy with the way things are. He loves you, he says he's exclusive, and you believe him, correct?
Yes.
You will get nowhere by wanting more, talking about more, and because you say, I want this man and I am willing to be in this relationship without the formal commitment. Because of that, you would be wise to completely let that go for a number of years. And this is not something that many women will agree to. For example, or even if I would be saying to other women, but it's because he has not been divorced long enough. Because you only have two choices here. And one is to do what you're doing and completely stop with any of the talk of pushing him towards something else. That's the one choice. And you will continue and things will be like they are, and you said they're very good. Or you have to then say, which is my lure him in strategy, I respect what you're doing. I know this, you're not ready. I understand it. I understand it has nothing to do with me and how you feel about me, but I need and want commitment above all, so I'm going to need to be out of this. And then you must do it in a way whereby you do the lore program, which I have, that the steps, once you do that, lead him, if the man is all ready, to commit. But in your case, I don't believe that would benefit you at all. Because where he is in his life, in terms of just having had a marriage that failed, he as a man, that will trump it for him. He will not be ready to, quote unquote, adopt a pretty puppy again. He will in time, perhaps, but it's not now. You as the woman are in complete control whether or not you say, I want this relationship and I want to be able to see if it goes the distance. And you can do that by completely getting up and off the relationship commitment talk, because you have a relationship. And for all intents and purposes, you have an exclusive boyfriend-girlfriend relationship that is you enjoy and you like. If you were to say to me, but no, in the next 2 years, I want to have a child, that's a very different conversation.
A baby fever for me is out the window.
Okay. So if you have a chance of going the distance, you would be well advised to do one thing.
Okay.
That one thing is to take some time before you answer Mark again, because you had a discussion whereby he said he needed time. Now, I'm not saying for very long. And then you come to him with one, I don't know how you're communicating. Text? Is it text? Is it call? What is it?
Both.
Okay, so has he called you yet?
Yes.
Have you talked?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So he's not living up to what he said about taking time. 2 days he took.
Pretty much.
Okay. So then it's kind of a moot point, but what did you talk about when you talked?
We talked about basically our day and just normal things. We didn't talk about the past. It didn't, whatever the reason why we took the space or the reason why why we took the space didn't come up.
So he acted as if it never happened.
Yes.
Okay. That I would address. Because what he's doing there isn't good for him to believe that you accept. Okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So, it's the next time you just talk to him. You say something a la, Mark, I know you had wanted to take time. And 2 days, not a lot of time. But during that 2 days, I did a lot of thinking. And I actually put myself more in your shoes. And call it whatever you want to call it. Women's knowledge about things, intuition, my higher self, whatever. I realize that it would be very difficult for you to make a formal, public, in any way legal commitment to me, no matter how much you care and want to be with me. What I can tell you is this, that I'm okay with things as they are now. And we seem to have put this behind us. We're not discussing it, and I don't need to discuss it again. I don't want to discuss it again. I know where you stand. I want you to know that I'm knowledgeable about it. I've accepted that for now. I can't tell you what next Valentine's 2022 will be like for me, but I don't see any reason now for us to talk any more about it, and I'm putting it to rest, and I'm happy that that you reached out and that we're talking again. No need to even respond. I just wanted you to know it. If you said all that,
reasonable.
Yes, what would he say?
He would be happy we are on the same page, I guess.
And it would relax him. It will also relax you. And you can go on with your good relationship as long as you make a commitment to what you just told him. In doing that, your value in his eyes will go up. He will think you are more amazing than he already thinks you are, because you get it. And you must make a commitment to yourself that you will not kind of slip back, so to speak, and you telling me you don't want to have children and you want to be with this man, a year's time is really not much. 2 years' time is not much, correct? To be with a man you love in a great relationship.
No. I never had a great relationship.
But you say this one is, right?
No. Yes, of course. I mean, this is my first time, so I'm kind of like walking around like, okay, am I doing it right?
Yes, as long as, yes. But to go back and forth and have these discussions before he is at a place of being ready, willing, and able to adopt a pretty puppy again is short-sighted in your case. You want him to be a man who lives by his word, and that's why he will not do it. To continue to have these discussions will erode his feeling about your value to a great degree. While he'll understand, yes, you want commitment, the fact that you would say it and not live by your word and move on to be adopted by someone else, it shows him something you don't want to be showing a man. That you're putting him before you. You're putting your love for him before your value system. You see? That doesn't work. What you're saying in essence is, I've decided. Through our discussions, I've decided that this is okay for me. Because I get why you wouldn't be ready. I can't tell you where I'll be a year from now, and certainly 2 years from now, but I get it. And you would be remiss to jump into something as a man in terms of commitment because it's too soon, and I get it. So I've decided, and so you're not going to hear it from me again. Your value to him will soar, and then you will see where you are in a year's time, 2 years' time, when he is more ready, willing, able. Because what I'm hearing is he's got incredible loyalty. You're very attached and connected. The work for you is, like you said, you are having a great relationship whereby you're not mothering this man in the ways before. You've totally changed from your past relationship. Don't put the pressure on yourself to adhere to something that isn't going to serve you or him just because society or other people or whatever it is.
Okay, so in essence, all of this is normal.
It is completely normal, and if you read my book and you understand men in the way I outline it there via the puppy principle, you will understand why it is completely normal for a man to not be ready minimally 3 years from a signed, sealed, delivered divorce. Minimally. I recommend 5 for anyone meeting, dating a man who is not divorced. And again, this is a generalization, but it is a rule of thumb, because think of yourself as an exceptional woman, but not the exception to the rule of men. He will not be ready before minimally 3 years, mostly 5.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking of his characteristics and things like that, and it makes sense.
Because when a man takes on a commitment and men live by their decisions, he needs to know 150% that he will do it. No matter how bad it is, if something goes wrong. And we are the same when we do something like adopt a puppy. For most of us. Yes, there are some of us who will, after 2 months of having lost their puppy, they go on a whim and they go to a shelter and they take the doggie and they don't think about how much they're going to have to spend on the shots and the spaying or neutering, and if they have the proper environment, or if they're going to have the money, if they're going to be traveling. They don't think about it. But a solid, responsible person, before they ever do that, if they've just lost a puppy, they just don't go and do that. It takes time. No matter how much we love puppies, we are not ready to do that. And again, for us as women, we're all on a scale, just as men are on the scale. But because men love women, like women love puppies, and they can love us all, they have to make a decision. And this is what he cannot do, because it has not been long enough. And because you are in the situation you are in, and you are not, some women would be saying, no matter what, after 2 years, I must be married, and that's it. And I can't deal with this, and I'm not going to be able to control myself, and I'm not, we're going to keep having these back and forth discussions. And I would say, then you're going to erode your relationship that you have, and you have to do the lure program. You have to do the lure him in, because that's the only way he has a modicum of a chance of really committing. And it does work under certain circumstances. But I'm not hearing that you even need to do that, because he is all in. And because you've been married for 10 years, you've only been out of a marriage for what, 2, 3 years now yourself?
Two years.
Yeah. So give yourself the time. Have a wonderful, unencumbered relationship like you do. Let the other stuff go and have that great relationship. Give him that time. You just go on in terms of dealing with your life, yourself, focus on you, and have that wonderful relationship on the flip side. And there's something in me that tells me that this will be working out for the two of you if you do have a discussion like I just laid out, utilize those words, and do not let him see something else. Look up to the heavens, say, I'm grateful for this relationship. It's come to me for a reason. It's come to him for a reason, and we're on the right path.
Yep. The manifestation, yep.
Right? Yeah. And then in a year, if you're still feeling the same, and it's creeping in again, because you have to check yourself. Whenever it creeps in, you have to think about this. And if this podcast airs, listen back to it. Because you have to remember, I'm making a commitment to myself for this. I'm making a commitment to play out what has the best chance of working in my circumstance.
I agree.
Cool. Any question for me?
No, because the one question I had, you answered it.
Okay.
Yes.
That's cool.
I'm excited.
I am too for you. And it would be wonderful, keep in touch, and maybe we can update and hear how it's going for you, making this commitment to you, and how he's reacting to you. It'd be great to hear how in 6 months you're doing.
Okay, definitely.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Well, I thank you for doing this today and being a guest. I think the conversation was very interesting and helpful to women who may find themselves in a very similar circumstance.
Actually, honestly, I feel a lot better. A lot better.
I'm so glad. I'm really, really glad.
I'm very grateful.
Oh, good. Well, I'm happy to have talked to you, and happy you spent this time doing it, again, because I think it is something that happens to so many of us in kind of, that time in our, after maybe a first marriage, so many women find themselves, and again, it's all about a particular situation. And for you, it sounds like you can really go forward here, and I'm excited for that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Absolutely. So it's so important to talk with someone if you are in a situation whereby, you are struggling with something. For all of us, it's so difficult to see the forest for the trees. For every one of us, we always need that outside input. This struggle for women in relationships whereby the man isn't committing, we really need to look at the situation through an objective lens of how men see commitment, how they love women, how they make their decisions to commit, and through their decision is the only way that they truly bond. And some may be saying, I can't believe you suggested that she go along for another year, Michelle go along for another year without committing, without Mark committing. How can that ever work? He's going to devalue her. I think then you need to re-listen to her situation and understand that in her situation, this will lend itself to the pressure being off of Mark and Michelle having done it in a value-based way. I've decided, and not letting him just back in, saying how you doing after needing to take time without it being addressed from that value-based way. I've made this decision that it's okay, and that's why, basically what you're saying is, that's why I'm okay with us talking again, and we're not going to discuss this anymore. I can't tell you how it will be in a year, but for now, I've made up my mind. That's super value-based for the man. And it will get him wondering. And that is so incredibly powerful. And what Michelle needs in her corner is that. And that alone can be enough when Mark is ready to adopt again. So if you are in a situation like this, get my book. It will open your eyes to the way men love, commit, and bond via the experience you have had or have yourself, which is the puppy principle, and the consumer versus buyer relationship test. You can take it at willhecommit.com. Because when you know where your man falls on the scale of being ready, willing, and able to commit, and I would dare say, if you are involved with any man who has not been signed, sealed, delivered, divorced for a minimum, as I said, of 3 years, for children, you've got to add another minimum of 2 years onto that. That man, for the most part, will come up most typically as a mixed messages consumer or a very low-scoring prospective buyer. It's just what it is for men. It's not you. It's not the relationship. It's maybe not anything having to do with the two of you. It's his state of being. And in my book is the criteria for a man being in the state of a buyer. And I don't mean when I say consumer versus buyer, it's not about men don't go out shopping. They consume when they're not in a state of being ready, willing, and able to commit. They consume women. And it takes that objective perspective that is very hard to get with friends, family, because they love you. They can't be as objective as a professional who can help you understand where the man is in the equation of the two of you. The differences in how men and women love, commit, and bond couldn't be greater. And it's what is the cause of so much turmoil, confusion, misinformation, misunderstanding. Oh my goodness. Because men do not commit out of love alone, ever. Women do that. And because we do that, it's very hard for us to see the forest for the trees and make clear decisions. And this is why I recommend for Michele, who has only herself been out of a marriage for 2 years, to make the commitment and decision for herself and commit to herself and her decision so that she can give herself and Mark a clear path. And I believe that will work. And it can work for you, depending if your situation is very similar to Michele's. You have maybe had your children. You are independent. You love a man and are in a great relationship. Normally, I say, and I say it right in my book, more time in doesn't help for a man to commit. It doesn't make him commit to you, more time in with you. But you have only two choices with a man who is unable to see his way clear for a marriage and formal commitment because of having just been out of a marriage. And those decisions cannot be taken lightly, because continuing to cajole, suggest, hint, talk about anything with a man related to that will only erode his good feelings, and then the time in will be harmful. This is a very contextual situation that demands eyes on the uniqueness and the particulars, and the devil's in the details. But you see, we got to them very quickly, because even though that letter came to me, and Michele and I had never talked before, that she wasn't able to commit because of past circumstances. Not the case. We found that out. We tend to sometimes, make a situation or our quote-unquote story about something, but then when we get down to it, it is just that. So if you need help in terms of bringing a man into your life in terms of full commitment, and he has never been married, or he has been divorced a minimum of 3 years signed, sealed, delivered, or 5 years signed, sealed, delivered with children, etc. And you, unlike Michele, are wanting marriage above all and cannot commit to letting it go for a certain amount of time, because that takes real commitment and work. And you cannot, and you want it above all, which is absolutely fine. There is no right or wrong here in terms of it. It's what you can do. And if you are in that situation, connect with me. You can go to coachpaulagrooms.com/programs. Check out the Lure Him In or Lure Him Back, because these 12-week programs whereby you get weekly coaching, I mean, we just did a truncated version here of what a bit of coaching can do to help you see things in a way whereby you can understand your particular man and open yourself up to new possibilities. And nothing works as well as the lure if you are ready yourself and know it has been a long time. You have waited, and you are at a place of no longer accepting a relationship without a full commitment. Connect with me there, coachpaulagrooms.com/programs. Also, go to my YouTube, Coach Paula Grooms. Plenty of videos there that are an adjunct to this podcast, or vice versa. This podcast is an adjunct to the videos. Lots of them there on so many different topics. And Instagram, Coach Paula Grooms, Instagram. My quotes, more videos, IGTV, etc. You will also get a lot there, and I would welcome seeing you there, and please say hello if you've listened to this podcast. And again, for any man in your life, make sure that you are always making him wonder.
Thank you for listening to Make Him Wonder. If you've benefited from today's conversation, please subscribe and share. Connect with Coach Paula at makehimwonder.com. There you can take several relationship evaluations, discover her books and other resources, and find out if one of her personalized coaching programs might be right for you.